So for about a year and a half, I felt like so disconnected from the work that I was doing with the magazine.
Welcome to the Rethink Desi Reframe series, where we challenge conventional narratives about social change, sustainability, and the South Asian community. Join me, your host, Arpita Sharma, each week as I have candid conversations with thought leaders, social entrepreneurs, researchers, activists, and creatives as we uncover the strategies, innovations, and stories behind their efforts to reshape our society. My name is Arpita Sharma, and I am excited to share part 2 of this conversation with Janani with you today. Janani is the founder of the Indian Standard, and we had a discussion with her last week. So if you haven't seen that episode, check it out. This is part 2 of this conversation, and this conversation focuses on her journey into entrepreneurship and really coming to terms and defining what success looks like in the creation of the Indian Standard. I think there's a lot of really great nuggets of wisdom that come out of this conversation, and I really hope that you enjoy watching this. So your mission includes inspiring others to kind of heal themselves and prioritize mental health. What advice or practices do you often recommend to your followers who are looking to start their healing journeys?
I think sometimes practices is a little bit, it's a little daunting. For people, I find that one of the biggest things that I've heard as of late is that sometimes it feels like I have to do this laundry list on top of everything that I have to do in a day. And I don't want to intimidate. So if none of if you've tried all the things that we've talked about so far and you still find yourself like really upset in a slump, and if you don't believe in God, or if you don't, all these different things, there's all these different nuances. I think it's really important to just validate your emotions. Like, I think especially for the kids, like, as you mentioned, like, I never really grew up in a household where, like, I was privileged in a lot of different ways, but like, as I mentioned, I was a rebellious kid. I don't think that I had that environment. I was always I'm the oldest, there's like a lot that goes into being an oldest daughter. There's a lot that has to do with being a girl in our society. And I think with all these different things, I feel like one thing that I've learned is that, like, not only to, like, be your own cheerleader, all that, self-acceptance stuff, but like also just sit with your own self more often. And if you find yourself needing more comfort, just like realizing that wanting community is not a bad thing. Wanting to be loved is not a bad thing. Wanting to feel accepted is not a negative. It's just the way that sometimes we go about it makes us end up backwards. Like with the way, like sometimes when we want acceptance and love and to be seen and to be heard so badly, the actions that we take as a result of that is not the most aligned. And like all these things that we're talking about right now is not to necessarily make you happier. It's to make you feel like you're on the right path, right? It's to make you struggle less. It's not to make you happier. And I want to stress that because your emotions, they're so like vast, and we're supposed to experience it all. Just because we have the most regimented spiritual practice, you could have the most perfect morning routine, the most perfect night routine. You could do everything on your to-do list that day, and you could still go to bed being like, I'm a piece of shit. You could still go to bed every single day feeling like I don't deserve anything. Unless you allow yourself the space and time to be like, I'm allowed to experience everything. I'm allowed to experience all the vastness of emotion. I'm not trying to change my emotional state. I'm more trying to just change my reactions and my belief systems. And I don't want to be so attached to my belief systems. Like, even saying me, my beliefs, it's just exhausting. Like, there's so much to this world, and I feel like it's better to just like detach from some of the things that we've been experiencing and open yourself up to something new. And I think the only way that you can really do that is if you sit with yourself a lot. And also just realize, like, me wanting all these things is not a bad thing. Right? It's just the way that it's like disrupting the way that I'm like living my life. Like, your actions are completely from your thought process. right? Your actions are dictated by your thought process. So if we fix the thought process, we will fix the actions. So just be patient. And like realize that everything is in your head in terms of like you are not your thoughts, you're not your beliefs, you're not your feelings, you're not even basically you according to our religion. Like you are this vast individual that has like the connection to everything, and like the only way that you're going to be able to tap into that is if you just isolate for some time and just be like, you know what, I'm just going to sit with myself, validate everything that I'm experiencing, and just like, you know, chug on that journey and just, you know, journal or meditate, do all these things. That's fine. But like, yeah, I think it's important to get to your belief systems.
That's, thank you for sharing that. I think that will be really helpful to some people. I know, I think hearing that would have been very helpful to me when I was younger. And I was going through a lot of my challenges. So I just appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
So I kind of delving a little bit into this idea of having a community, right? And desiring a community. So like building that community around mental health and self-acceptance it's not a small feat, you know, by any means. It requires a lot of patience and dedication in so many aspects. So how do you foster a sense of belonging and support within your audience?
When you first started that question, I was like, are you talking about me? Like, I don't think I did that. I was like, oh yeah, that is sad. That sounds really hard. But no, I guess I agree. I mean, I feel like, okay. I think one thing that and it's funny, like I'm gonna like pivot to a side story again. But I finished like the documentary with my team, and we were showing it to the whole like team and everything. So it was just me, Shaker, my videographer, and my husband Kiran. The three of us were editing the documentary literally like day in, day out for a few days straight. And so I showed the rest of my team like the documentary, and when they stepped outside, they were like, say a speech. And so I said, you know, I was a really lonely kid. I was a really depressed kid, and all I wanted was a group of people. That's like, all I wanted was just like a group, you know, like those group of girlfriends, like brown girlfriends that you just have, like some people just have for the rest of your life. And you're like, how do you have that for so long? Like I don't even feel like sometimes I have one. Like ride or die girl. Like it's hard to like, especially being a girl and being brown. I feel like you just want to have that group. And so when I looked around and I was like looking at my team, I was like, you know, it's like in this moment, I should choose to be grateful. Like I shouldn't be picking apart the fact that I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have this friend, I don't have that friend. Instead, just look around and be like, okay, like what do you have? And I think I realized in that moment that all I really wanted my whole life was just a couple of people who had my back and who was willing to work on this crazy project with me. And I have that now, right? Like, are we like the tightest of friends and we hang out every single day? Like, no, obviously not. But like, you know, I have a team of people that I can rely on, you know, and that's huge. Like a lot of people don't have that. I think that in some ways I've done that. And I think in some ways that I can improve is just like, you know, really inspiring other people and inspiring myself to say like wanting community and wanting friends is not a bad thing. I feel like we live in a really individualized society in the United States. I think the collective, like one extreme is like, obviously both extremes are pretty horrible. Like you shouldn't necessarily be completely collective or completely individual. I think that balance is really important. And so kind of like fostering that within yourself and just being like okay with wanting to be around people and just being like, I'm really lonely. Like I'm really sad. I'm feeling really depressed. I don't feel like I have a team. I don't feel like I have people who cheer me on, and like writing that desire down and just being like, okay, well, Next time I get in front of people, I'm going to open up with kindness. Next time I go in front of like a crowd of strangers, I'm just going to be really nice and I'm just going to be really open-minded. I don't care who the person is. I'm going to show kindness and just be really, really sweet all the time. And I think like killing people with kindness is so important. And that is what fosters community. Honestly, I'm being so serious.
That's good to know.
Yeah. You just got to be nice all the time. And that's what helps me is like, I know that even if someone doesn't necessarily like me, like if I just put my best foot forward and foster that community myself, I don't have to step into a community that's already been created. If I want to create my own, or if I want like something, then I have to be the one to go get it. And how do I go get community? You just be nice. You know, you don't judge, you don't criticize. And I think that that's something that, again, starts with you. So in terms of like, how did I build a community? I don't think I have. I think that I found a lot of really great people and they've somehow trusted me with their heart and with their mind, and with their work. And I'm very thankful for that. And I hope that I can continue being, you know, a nice person and continue just being like an open person for people to rely on.
So I think that was really helpful in understanding. We often, often when you're in that lack mentality, it's very easy to kind of nitpick or feel like things are not perfect. But, but oftentimes it's like coming from a place of ego, rather than like a place of actually being able to like foster a connection, right?
Right.
And so I think that that's a very valuable insight, and recognizing and being grateful for the people that are in your life, and thinking about ways that you can nurture deeper relationships with them and with others by building kind of an inclusive environment, and spaces where people feel safe and comfortable being themselves.
Yeah. Hopefully I can keep doing something of that degree. You know, in some ways I feel like I have done that. In some other ways I feel like I can continue to improve. So it's a lifelong journey, you know, we have time.
Yes, definitely. I feel that same way, and I feel that same struggle also. So I feel like
we're trying to accomplish everything yesterday. Like for what? You know, like you want this community, you got to work for it. You got to be that nice person. And for that, you have to show up for yourself every day. And that's super important.
Yeah. And also very challenging.
Yeah. There's dualities to everything, right?
Yeah. So, let me ask you, what are some of the most valuable lessons or personal growth moments that you've experienced starting, since starting your creative journey and the Indian Standard?
I guess one really big lesson is, I think something I mentioned before is that, you know, you kind of have to be like, what does it mean to be a CEO? What does it mean to work for yourself? Right? And then how is that different from being an employee at your own company? Like if you are, and I'm going to take this strictly on the business side because I have a 9-to-5 job. So I know how I operate as an employee. And then I know now a little bit about how I operate when it comes to owning a business, right? We incorporated back in 2020. So it's been about this October, it'll be 3 years. And over the years, I've caught myself like resenting the magazine. And that's why I found Skanda actually in the interview said that he personified the relationship to his violin, and that friendship that he built with his violin was so impactful. And that's what allows him to pick it up every single day. Or even not even every single day, but like he says in his interview, he's like, and I'm going to paraphrase. He says, if you were to practice your violin every single day, maybe that's a little bit too much, right? Like just like if you were to talk to a friend all the time, that's a little bit too much. But if you were to talk to your friend not at all, like that connection might go away. And he kind of explains like how he's built that relationship with his violin. You know, as somebody who's like very obsessive about the things that they want in life, I wake up thinking about the magazine and I go to sleep thinking about the magazine. My entire breath is about the Indian Standard. And sometimes it's a bit much. And I think sometimes it's really important to take a step back and realize like, okay, what is it that I'm really trying to do here? Like, I can sit here and go through the motions of building this business, or I can be really intentional about the things that I'm trying to accomplish. And I've chosen the latter more frequently as of late because I had that really bad experience where I was like, I don't feel like a good business owner. I don't feel like I'm actually, doing my job properly. Like pretty much all of 2020, like middle of 2021 to like I would say the end of 2022. So for about a year and a half, I felt like so disconnected from the work that I was doing with the magazine. And you can see that in the amount of issues that I had published during that time, meaning zero. And I feel like that caused so much hatred for myself. I was like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just pick up this magazine again? Why can't I just do this again? And I realized like I wasn't being intentional about my rest. I wasn't being intentional about the work that I was doing. Although my heart was in it, I wasn't being a CEO. I was being a strict employee who hated her job. Who believed in the company but didn't like what she was doing day to day. So I completely pivoted at December. I would say maybe October. No, I would say September of last year. So it's been a full year of me having like that complete 180 pivot, and I think that that's evident in my work. Like I'm a lot more intentional. I'm even more so than before, and I'm really proud of what I've been able to accomplish with my team, because had I not, really put my foot down and been like, my behavior is unacceptable and I don't like the way that I'm conducting myself in my personal life and and any of these different ways, I don't think I would have attracted the team that I have right now. Like a lot of people might look at my team and be like, oh, you had it so easy. And I'm like, you don't even understand. Like, it's been my life mission to help people with their mental health and spirituality. And now we're finally able to do that. So I would say, yeah, rest and being really intentional with it.
I think it's a very valuable lesson. I think just in terms of anything in life, right, is that it can be very frustrating when you feel like you're pouring your heart and soul into something and you want to like make a specific type of progress and you're not able to make it, to not feel resentful towards that thing. But instead, I think what I hear from you is that you had to take a step back and recognize, and part of taking that step back, I think did allow you to grow a bit because it allowed you to recognize the value of the craft that goes into the creation of what you're doing, of feeling inspired, of feeling that creative energy flow through you as you're putting putting things into action. That's something that I'm like that is coming off as like something that you really kind of developed for yourself in kind of going through this process. And like, I would even say that sometimes like those breaks are necessary and they're important because they provide the space for you to go through that. It's interesting because creation and destruction kind of go hand in hand, right? Where, and even in our religion, it's literally this way too, where oftentimes that you need to feel that like space of destruction, of being able to deconstruct what you're doing, to really like push back, feel the tensions in order to get to the new space where you feel more passion and more alive doing the thing that you've been doing before.
Transmutation. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
What message or words of encouragement would you like to share with individuals who may be going through kind of their own mental health challenges right now? I know we've gone through so many kind of different pieces from talking about entrepreneurship to talking about struggling with mental health, and overcoming those and kind of the tools and strategies that you've used in that whole process. But is there, if you could leave our audience with one key takeaway, what would it be?
I guess be patient with yourself. Struggles feel like it's the only thing that you're going through right now, and it's hard to see both the past of the good times and the future of the potential good times. So I understand that tunnel vision really sucks. And that I'm sorry that that's what you're feeling right now, because we all know what that feels like. But I think it's really important to be patient and to realize that that light will come so long as, when you're ready for it. And it doesn't have to be today. It doesn't have to be tomorrow. It doesn't have to be a year from now, but take your time and just allow for that light to come through, because it will. You just have to know that it will, and I don't want any sort of drastic action to take place when you're waiting for that. So definitely be patient. And try to love yourself if you can, or pour your love into something that is outside of you, because that's really powerful too.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.